got Gavin Newsom with an executive order barring Los Angeles County landlords from evicting tenants housing wildfire victims. We've got the Los Angeles City Council coming up with eviction moratoriums and putting a cap on rent increases. This all while Los Angeles burns. And it's absolutely mind-blowing, the nonsense that these people come up with to just further disrupt the free market. But hey, it's Los Angeles, it's California. We're used to this. Let's check it out. Here we go. Here's a little piece on the LA City Council. Eviction moratorium. Rent controls.
Members have introduced a motion to protect residents from the threat of eviction and rent hikes during the wildfire emergency. The legislation calls for a moratorium on evictions for tenants affected by the fires and a one-year pause on rent hikes through January 2026. The council members also cited a 2019 MIT study that found eviction rates can nearly double after natural disasters. The motion will be heard in the Housing Committee before the City Council votes in the coming weeks.
Well, that effectively ensures that nobody wants to rent out a room or a couple of rooms or a unit to a fire victim now that these genius prohibitions have been put in place. I mean, just the mindset of these people. I mean, it's just this misguided common sense. They're just not using it. I mean, it's, to me as a real estate guy, I'm like, okay, that's going to work out well, but you know what? This is in Los Angeles. Let's just see how it goes. Because we saw how the eviction moratoriums went down with the whole COVID thing. You've still got landlords that are dealing with that nonsense. They can't get people out. The courts were so backed up. And now, okay, yeah, if you let somebody in your home, you can't evict them because they're a victim of the what? I mean, this whole thing is government stepping in to try and prevent the free market from doing its own thing. That's what I'm a huge not a proponent of, right? Governor Gavin Newsom issued an executive order Friday prohibiting landlords in LA County from evicting tenants who open their doors to wildfire victims. So you're going to tell me that you're basically going to nullify the lease? Just, we're going to throw this content in here. You guys are just going to have to deal with it. Who wants to live with that? What landlord wants to deal with that? Hey, my tenants took these people in, and now we've got this situation and nobody wants to pay rent, and they're claiming that they are victims of the wildfire. Who knows, right? What does that mean? What does that mean? Yeah, well, this should just complicate everything pretty well. At a time when so many have suddenly displaced, we need more housing and shelter than ever. Well, you've constricted the supply of housing, and then you didn't do a great job of responding to what was a known wildfire situation. So this is what you get. And then you try and back-end it with policy that's going to do nothing but muck things up. So opening your place of residence to help shelter those in need is not only encouraged and generous, but deserves to be protected, Newsom said in a statement. Yeah, but these are tenants who have a lease with their landlords, and all of a sudden, big component of that is landlord loses control. It's like, tenant can just bring in whomever from the fire. Hey, come on in, and then not be kicked out. Eviction moratorium. I mean, it just makes no sense. Specifically, the order prohibits landlords from using the lawful detainer process to evict a tenant for violating a term of their lease that would otherwise prohibit them from sheltering one or more people displaced by the recent emergency. What does that look like? Seriously, what does that look like? We've literally just gotten over the eviction moratoriums a couple of years ago from the whole pandemic thing. That should have never happened. Never happened. Such a one-sided, scale of justice, right? Well, tenants, they're all covered. Landlords, screw those guys. They can go to the bank and get a loan. They already did once. That's how they bought it, right? I mean, that is literally what has been stated and is the mindset of these losers who come up with this just nonsensical drivel. The order, however, doesn't prohibit landlords from enforcing other parts of a tenant's lease. I should hope not. That's why you have a lease. You are screwing with a contract. Local leaders and LA City Council have also taken steps to protect residents displaced by deadly wildfires. See, anytime the government steps in to protect anybody, that's when it gets screwed up. Council members, yada, yada, and yada, yada, introduced a motion that calls for a moratorium on evictions for tenants affected by the fires. Under the motion, any tenant impacted by the recent wildfires couldn't be evicted. What is up with these people? I mean, this is just straight up socialism, right? It's just straight up socialism. Protect the people. Whatever. That motion is expected to be heard by the Housing and Homeless Committee. That's good. Governor's executive order will be effective until March 8th, 2025. Guaranteed that gets extended. I mean, we had eviction moratorium after eviction moratorium get extended during the pandemic, right? All right, let's here's a quick look at that. What you need to know: Governor Newsom bans evictions based on hosting fire survivors. I mean, you would think this is like something from The Onion, right? I mean, you would think it's like, what? Just don't mess with it. You already did such a piss poor job with the fires themselves, with prevention and then execution during the time of when your residents needed you the most. And now you're just making a bunch of excuses. You're yapping at Trump because Trump's saying, hey, you weren't prepared. And you're like, As the legislature works to strengthen protections through legislation, this order provides an interim solution to provide immediate relief and clarity to protect tenants and survivors. Hey, I'm not trying to make fun of anybody in the fire, but when you start mucking with this stuff, I'm a hard no-go, right? You've got leases in place for a reason. You got a fire happen. Okay, stuff's going to happen. And you know what? Insurance companies knew this was happening. That's why they're pulling out in droves. Weather Service said, hey, you got some really big fires. Maybe you should get prepared. Instead, the mayor of Los Angeles is over in Ghana doing a cocktail party with an incoming president. I mean, seriously, this is The Onion. LA Council delays vote on proposal to pause evictions and rent increases due to fires. This is one more reason landlords aren't going to want to be landlords. In Seattle, I mean, it is just a known quantity. Yeah, I mean, if you can buy a home just outside of Seattle, you're going to be better set up because you don't have these ridiculous moratoriums that City of Seattle put in place. You don't have that necessarily in other communities. You don't have that. I mean, Washington state law is bad enough as it is. California state law, even worse, along with all kinds of other just ridiculousness. But Los Angeles City Council voted unanimously Tuesday to approve a host of emergency responses to the past week's historically destructive wildfires, but the council delayed one proposal that would have protected Angelenos affected by fires from evictions and rent hikes. Real estate has been at the center of this because that has been the natural disaster, right? Burned up all kinds of homes. Talked yesterday in an extensive podcast about how long it's going to take. And I think it's going to take up to 10 years in some of these cases to get your plans together, to get your permitting together, to get city approval, to get all the approvals, 15, 20 different permits you're going to need to find a contractor, to get your insurance squared away. It's going to take years and years and years with all the bureaucratic levels of just nonsense. And now on the back end, these politicians are basically going to further constrict the supply of rental housing because nobody's going to want to rent to anybody in the event that they decide to open their home up to, a wildfire survivor. Nobody's going to want to rent. Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, how many homes did we have go vacant after the pandemic, right? After the pandemic, go vacant just because landlords are like, you know what? So I lose a year of rent. Okay. I can take that. At least I have control over my property. And this is one of those things where you're taking out control and giving it to somebody else in the equation that doesn't own the asset. I am a hard no-go on that. Any of this stuff is just nonsense. Similar to rules that the city enacted during the COVID-19 pandemic, the proposal seeks to stop landlords from increasing rents for 1 year and halt evictions for tenants who fall behind on rent because they lost income, fell ill, or took in additional roommates due to fires. What about the owners of properties? What are you going to do for them? I'm listening. What are you going to do for them? What are you going to do for the homeowners? What do you got going on for the homeowners? What are you going to do for the homeowners who might fall behind on their payments to their lenders? What do you got going on there? So why are we only protecting tenants? Why is that? Why are you taking the ability for a owner of an asset and basically encumbering that and saying that that's okay? And saying this is what we're doing to protect people. You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense. Instead of taking up the motion introduced by council members, yada, yada, and yada, yada, council diverted the proposal to the Housing and Homeless Committee. Oh, I'm sure they're just going to do wonders with this. I'm sure this is just going to go boop straight to the top, right? Where it now faces an uncertain future. We are disappointed and frustrated that the council wouldn't act immediately to take care of this during a crisis. Well, I mean, what would you expect? This is Los Angeles. This is California. This is exactly how you have wildfires take off and the city basically isn't prepared, don't have water in their reservoirs, don't have water at their hydrants. People are installing private fire hydrants. People are hiring private fire department help. I mean, it's terrible. It's terrible while still paying some of the highest taxes in all of the land. But hey, let's go ahead and constrict that housing supply just a little bit more for tenants and make it so that no landlord, Los Angeles rental, no, going to keep that bad boy vacant, even if it's just a room or two, right? Because, I mean, what are you going to charge? You can't charge more than market rent. Otherwise, you might get turned in to the, price gouging police. That is literally a thing in California. Got all these hotlines and websites you can go to, and you can tattle on people for charging a little bit more, even though your whole supply and demand thing has been absolutely blown out of the water because you had 10,000, 12,000, whatever homes burned to a crisp, burned to the ground. You're going to have some fluctuations with pricing when that happens. Oh, we can't have price gouging. Hey, that's an inevitable part of a wildfire that the insurance companies knew were coming. And it's been coming. This isn't anything new. This is a day in Los Angeles, right? And it's been a couple of weeks because these fires are still going. Tenant advocates want broad protections. Oh, I bet they do. What are they going to give up in return? What are they going to give up? Nothing. Bunch of knuckleheads. Jagger said, tenant rights lawyers are starting to hear from renters facing pressure to quickly leave their apartments so landlords can move in someone displaced by the fires. Really? I mean, really? Are you going to go with that? You're going to lead with that? I don't believe anything any of these advocates say. It's all a bunch of nonsense. It's all just a bunch of self-serving nonsense. If you had equal rights for ownership, then I would say, all right, okay, that seems fair enough, but there's never anything. And that's because this is basically socialism/communism, right? I mean, it just is. It's absolutely absurd the way that this whole thing has gone down. Meanwhile, as if Los Angeles officials don't have enough on their plates, they have another problem. And this is CNN, so CNN won't go right to it. But I'm going to do a whole podcast on this, so look for this one. Arsonists. But what it should say is homeless, drug-addled arsonists. These are people that set fires just on the daily in their regular life because they're all hopped up on meth with some fentanyl in there. I mean, these people just light fires just because they got nothing else better to do, and they get all hopped up on drugs, and they love fire. Meth heads love fire. You see the numbers when it comes down to how many responses fire department makes in general, and then how many of those calls are from fires set by the homeless. Los Angeles having one of the biggest homeless populations in the United States, in the world. So is it a shocker that we got a bunch of people, hopped up on whatever, lighting fires? Because, hey, they saw the fire up over there. Fire's on their mind. They got nothing else better to do. They've got all the government assistance they need. They could care less. I mean, they're homeless shelters somewhere in Skid Row, right? So they don't care. They're just out wandering around, lighting some fires. And we've seen how many examples of those people being arrested for this nonsense. So meanwhile, you got the city council and you got the governor just screwing up the housing supply, just further monkeying something that didn't need monkeying with. Let the free market do its thing. It'll work itself out. It's going to be a little bit bumpy, but that is literally what's going to happen when you have the worst forest fires in ever, possibly, as far as most damage goes. This is what's going to happen. This is the result of that kind of thing. And also not being prepared, not doing appropriate wildfire management, and so many other things. Oh, I need to look into that. Oh, we need to get a study going on that. And it's like, really? Because when fires hit other areas, they're prepared. Yeah. And this is a known wildfire area, right? I mean, that to me is the bottom line. So known wildfire area, and this is what you're doing on the tail end, on the back end, and it's simply not going to work. All right. That's all I got on this one. Thanks so much for being here. I'll catch up with you in the next one. Bye for now.